Pleasant day everyone, especially to our instructor, Mr. Fernando Ined. At this moment, where I am going to report our task with Dinah, and Dinah, the one who make the handout, so I'll be the one to report our assigned task, they entitled the literary figure of speech and symbols. But before that, we first define or give the definition what is the literary or literature. So literature, it is having a lot of knowledge about a literature known for reading or writing books. And aside from that, literature is written works such as poems, plays, or novels that are considered to be very good and to have lasting importance. Also, books, articles, and many more are about a particular subject. Even printed materials such as booklets and leaflets and brochures that provide information about something. So literature, we can see the literature even in our school, in our home, or even in outside. We have different literature like a magazines, a brochures, a newspaper. So that is one of a literature. And in literature, so we have our, as what I said, literacy, figure of speech, and symbols. So we will tackle now the figure of speech. So figure of speech, these are the words or phrases that have different meaning aside from its literal meaning. So of course, there is a different meaning, not only one meaning, but there is a different meaning. So for your father to know, so I have here some examples. So her skin is whiter than milk. So in a literal meaning, so her skin is whiter than milk. But in a figurative language, so it mean also, or it meant that her skin is white. So that's it. And the second one example here is, I watched the Titanic a million times. So if we say, or we talk about literal meaning, so I watched the Titanic for a million times. That is the literal meaning. But in a figurative language, so I watched the Titanic for many times, not a million times. So that is the literal meaning and the figurative meaning. So another is, we have a different figure of speech. So first we have the simile, the metaphor, the irony, the hyperbole, the personification, synecdoche, the understatement, the paradox, the oxymoron, pun, and also we have here the onomatopoeia, the metonymy, apostrophe, assonance, the antithesis, the anaphora, and alliterations. But before that, we will tackle first what is simile. So simile, it is a figure of speech that compare two persons or objects using the words like and as. So for example, brave as lions. So brave as lions, so if we will make a sentence, so our frontliners are brave as lions. So the frontliners compare to the lions. So, and using the words as. So our frontliners are brave as lions, and the word used in a sentence is as. So it is a simile because simile is using the words like and as. So another example is, he is as tall as a mountain. So the word used here is as. So another example of simile is red as rose. So her cheeks are red like a rose. So cheeks is compared to rose. And the word used in a sentence is like, so it is simile because simile is using words like or as. And for next is we have the metaphor. So metaphor here is, it is comparing two unlike objects or things which may have same common qualities. So metaphor is alike and simile, but metaphor do not use the word like or as. So for example, peak of her career. So peak of her career. So since a career is not a literal mountain with a peak, but the metaphor represents the idea of arriving at the highest points of one career. So that is the metaphor. Next is the irony. So irony is when a word or phrase says a literal meaning is opposite of its figurative meaning. So many times, but not always, irony is expressed. So an irony also here is the expression of the something that is different from what is truly meant, or it meant to show sarcasm or a funny. So for example, a carpenter does not have his own house. So you are a carpenter, but you don't have your own house. So that is the one of the example of the irony. So another example here is you see a student teaching his teacher how to use a projector. So it is opposite. So since the teacher will be the one to teach her students or his students to how to use a projector or how to project a projector. So that is one of the example of the irony. And also I have for example, wow, that was the best cook I ever had. So of course, what you really mean is that it's the worst cook you ever had, but being ironic actually emphasizes just how bad it was. And the next figure of speech is hyperbole. So hyperbole is an extravagant statement or the use of exaggerated terms for the purpose of emphasis, heightened effect. So hyperbole. So example here is the king's nose was 3 feet long. So it is over. So it is one of the example of hyperbole. Or I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. And another example of hyperbole is she cried a river when her dog died. So in the example of I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. So of course, in the literal meaning, so I'm so hungry so I could eat a horse. So that is a literal meaning. But if we will talk about a figurative language, so I'm so hungry so I could eat a horse. So meaning to say, so I'm so hungry meaning to say they will eat because they hungry. So that is one of the example of hyperbole or the exaggerated terms. Next is for the personification. Personification is a figure of speech in which an inanimate object or abstraction endowed with human qualities or the abilities. So, and the example here is the willow trees shook her long hair. So, the example is referring to the way that the willow trees is long branches sway in the wind. By saying shook her long, the tree is given a characteristics of a human. So that is a personification. And another example of personification is the cake is calling my name. So it is given a characteristics or attitude of a human being to a non-human object or thing. So for example, the cake is calling my name. So the characteristics here is calling. And another example is the leaves dance in the wind. So not mean that the leaves dance on the wind. It says, or it means that because of the wind, the leaves were sway or swinging. And the next of the figure of speech is the synecdoche. So synecdoche here, it is a figure of speech in which a part is used to represent the whole. So example here is 100 head of cattle. So using the part head here is refer to the whole animal. So 100 head of a cattle. And the next here is understatement. So understatement here, it is a figure of speech in which the writer or a speaker deliberately makes a situation seem less important or serious than it is. And the example here is to say it rained a bit more than usual while describing an area being flooded after a heavy rainfall. So it is the uh, understatement. And next is we have the paradox. So paradox here is it is a statement that appears to contradict itself. So the example here of the paradox is drowning in the fountain of internal life. Deep down, you're really shallow. So it is a statement that appears contradict itself. And we have here the oxymoron. So oxymoron, it is a figure of speech in which incongruous or contradictory terms appear the side by side. So the example here is we have a dark light. So contradict. So dark light, we have a living dead. So it is one of the example of oxymoron. And aside from that, the example is a baked baby, a jumbo shrimp, original copy. So this is the combination of the two contradictory terms. So it is called the oxymoron. And the next is pun. So pun is a play on words, sometimes on different sense of the same words, or sometimes on the similar sense or sound of different words. So the example here is Anti-Schism is a non-profit institution. So the anti-schism and the institution here are the words it is a different words but in similar. So anti-schism and profit institution. So it is fine. So the next here is the onomatopoeia. So onomatopoeia, it is the use of words that imitate the sounds associated with the objects or actions they refer to, or it is a vocal imitation of sound that is made by a thing or an action or the sound effect in writing. So for example, the clap, the murmur. So another example of onomatopoeia or somewhat like sounds. So moo, oink oink, boom, toot toot, ring ring. So that is one of the example of the onomatopoeia, and we can find the sounds even in the movie. So there is a subtitle, so we can also find the onomatopoeia. And the next is metonymy. So metonymy here is the figure of speech in which one word or phrases is substitute for another word which is closely associated, right? Or it is also the rhetorical strategy of describing something indirectly by referring to things around it. So for example, crown. So crown, of course, it is for the power of a king. And the White House, so it is referring to the American administration. So this is the one example of metonymy. And for the apostrophe here, breaking of discourse to address some abstract quality and inanimate object or a non-existent character. For example, oh, pardon me, though bleeding is preferred. So that is one of the example of apostrophe. And aside from that, I have heard one example, oh death, don't come to me. So that is one of the apostrophe. And next is we have the assonance. So assonance here is identifying or similarity in sounds between internal vowels and neighboring words. So it is identifying or similarity in sounds between the internal vowels and neighboring words. So for example, the crumbling thunder of sea. So it is one of the example of the assonance. And the next is anaphora. So anaphora here, it is the repetition. Repetition of the same word or phrases at the beginning of the successive clauses or verses. So, for example of the anaphora, so always remember that it is repetition of the same word or phrases. So, example, I came, I saw, so I conquered. So, the word here that is a repetition, which is the I. So, I and I am I. So it is one of the example of anaphora because repetition of the same word or phrases at the beginning of successive clauses or verses. And next is alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of the initial consonant sound. Here in the anaphora is repetition of the same word. In the alliteration, the repetition of initial consonant sounds. So example, we have Sally, sells, seashells. Sally sells seashells. So the word consonant here being repeated or redundant is S. So it is alliteration, and it is one of the example of repetition of initial consonant, which is the alliteration. And those are the figure of speech. And now we're going to talk about the symbols or the symbolism. Symbolism or symbols, it is a practice or art of using an object or a word to represent an abstract idea, an action, a person, a place, or a word or object can all have a symbolic meaning. Like for example, me. So the object that I symbolize me is a stone because stone is very strong. So even I encounter some problems, so I still strong. So that is one of a symbol, a stone. So we have here the conventional symbol and the literary symbol. So conventional symbol, it is a symbol that can easily recognized and understood by many. So conventional symbol, the people or the person can easily recognize or can easily understood of what symbol that being emphasized or being meant. And we have here the literary symbol. If it's a literary symbol, so it is any object or the character, event, or a memoir can develop symbolic significance in the context of a particular poem, play, or a story. So, literary symbol, for example, I am going to write a poem, and that poem is the symbol that I can put in the poem. So, like, a poem is all about love. So that is one of the literary symbols. And we have here also a literary symbols. So we have here the symbolic colors, and also we have the symbolic objects, the flowers as symbols, and animals as symbols, and weather as symbols. So for the symbolic colors, so symbolism is often found in colors. So the black, so black here is used to represent death or evil. So that is symbolic colors. And the white is stand for life and purity. The red can symbolize blood, passion, danger, or immoral character. And the purple is a royal color. So that is a symbolic colors. And yellow stands for violence or decay. Blue represents the peacefulness and calm. And another example of a symbolic color is the orange, the energy and the happiness. So that is a symbolic color. And also the green, the new beginnings and abundance nature. So that is, those are the symbolic colors. And now, we're going to talk about the symbolic objects. So, also the objects can symbolize a person or it can symbolize our life. So, everyday objects are often used to symbolize something else. So, a chain can symbolize the coming together of two things. So, that is a symbolic objects. And a ladder represents the relationship between the heaven and the earth. So that is a symbolic object. A mirror, I can denote the sign, but when it's broken, it can represent an happy union or a separation. And another example of the symbolic objects, so we have the cross. So cross stands for Christianity and faith. And also the stars, the distance, and magic. So those are the symbolic objects. And now, flowers as symbols. So even flowers have symbols. So if, for example, rose, so stand for romance. So my life is like a rose. So rose stand for romance. So violet, so represent shyness. The violet is represent shyness. And lilies stand for beauty and temptation. Chrysanthemums, so represent the perfection. And another example of the flower symbol is daisy. So daisy stands for innocence and purity, and the aster is wisdom. So forward to even animals has symbols also. So when we read a book or enjoy reading a poem, so any animals added to the story can convey a message or work as part of the theme. So let's take a look at the few examples. So a bear. So a bear might represent courage or danger. So I know that we already saw a bear, so it is very dangerous. So even a butterfly. So a butterfly can symbolize the great transformation. And the dog, so dog here is often stand for loyalty or devotion. And a serpent, so serpent might symbolize corruption or a darkness. So those are the animals as symbols. And another example that of animals as symbols is turtle. So turtle is good health and a long life. So it stands for good health and long life to turtle. Birds, hope and beauty. The eagle is the success, and the cat is death. So forward to weather as symbols. Even weather has also as symbols. So also in words of literature, a writer might spend a moment describing the weather in a particular scene. So this is likely for a person. So let's take a look at a few examples. So fog, so that is a weather. So fog is represent a bad omen or something terrible in the horizon. So fog is one of the weather as examples. The storms. So storms is usually symbolize hostility or turmoil. The snow often comes with a message of calmness or purity. And the wind might be used to symbolize power of strength. So that is a weather as symbols. And even the rain. So rain is signify the renewal, fertility, and changes. So those are, and that's it, my report of the literacy figure of speech.